time not to sip coffee into the mic. Like hear myself. That's nice.
That's nice.
That's some nice sipping.
Aidan,
What's going on?
nice to see you on the block today. I'm really excited about today's episode on video, everything video, talking about the importance of video. We get questions all the time when clients call us around video, and a lot of times around price and all that stuff. So we'll talk about that. But I just want to get diving into it. And, you know, I would say the last 5 to 10 years, video is becoming more and more prominent. What, in your mind, what is video content for when it comes to businesses?
Yeah, 100%. Well, so video is just one form of many mediums, let's say, of getting information across, right? So traditionally there's text or copy, there's photo before there was video, you know, and video just seems like a natural progression forward. But realistically, all it is just a more efficient way of getting information across to the viewer.
And how can that video, as far as content, like how can it be broken up? You know, there's long form, short form, there's social, there's stuff for commercials, web. How can someone think about their video and how it applies to their business?
Yeah, I think ultimately what it comes down to is what message you're trying to get across. You know, there's different formats like you're mentioning, but they all have different reasons for choosing those formats. So, for example, if you're trying to talk about, you know, the value that your company brings to a service, a project, something like that, then you might choose something that's interview based, like not unsimilar to what we're doing right now, right?
Okay.
To get that information across. If you're talking about the quality of something, where you don't necessarily need to talk about how it was manufactured or what materials are used or anything like that, then you might just do a quick 15-second snippet on what that product looks like. If you're talking about the functionality, maybe you want some lifestyle, right? So some people walking through that space or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So just really thinking about what is the message that you're trying to get across, and then what's the visual or what's the representation that's going to best represent that.
So do you ever have people saying, you know, why do I need to hire a production crew, a team? I have my phone. And nowadays phones are getting more advanced. You know, when is there a place for using your phone, and when is there a place for hiring a crew? You know, we'll talk a little bit further about the value behind what you guys do when it comes to editing and all of that stuff. But, you know, I guess as time goes on, like phones are getting more savvy. People are getting, you know, they go on Google and they watch or YouTube and watch how to film and do all that stuff. So can you help our viewers kind of understand when a good time is to use your phone? And then
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I think is important to note is that most of the time, you know, when a video production is quoting on something, they're not even thinking about competing on what gear is being used, you know. So a phone is a great piece of tool, and it's a great tool, and it's not like you mentioned, the quality and the resolution and the image that's coming out of these phones is excellent. So, you know, a production company really isn't competing on the gear they're using. It's not, they might have a better camera, but it doesn't really make that big of a difference at the end of the day. So typically what you're getting with the price you're paying for a production company is experience. It's the pre-production, it's the revisions, it's the dedicated editors and VFX and audio guys and everything else. So what I would say to that is that, you know, if you're looking for a raw image, which there is a lot of value in these days, something behind the scenes or a quick snippet or a story on social, those sort of things, absolutely pull out your phone, get it done, make sure the shot's captured, because at the end of the day, that's never going to happen again. So if the crew isn't there the first time, get it on your phone, you know, absolutely 100%. But I would say, you know, when there's a bigger story to tell, when there's a more advantageous message or something that, you know, just can't be told via phone, then hire the production company, because the phone pieces of content will always be supporting pieces next to the ultimate goal, you know, the ultimate message that could be the main part of the campaign.
And so there's some terms you threw out there behind the scenes. BTS is kind of used. And we throw these out all the time on at our, you know, when we're doing real estate footage and stuff, and people are like, what does that mean? So and then what about B-roll? What does B-roll mean? Because that's another term we toss around, and people are like, B-roll, what is that? So, and how does that complement, you know, the main visual?
Totally. So typically A-roll in most cases is A-roll refers to, so obviously to understand B-roll, you have to understand A-roll. Okay. So A-roll would be the main message, the main content that's kind of getting the message across, which in most cases these days is kind of interviews, right? So if I sit you down and I ask you a bunch of questions and you're giving me context as to far as what I'm asking, that would be our A-roll for the film, for the video, whatever. B-roll would be anything that's supporting that. So if you're used to seeing a video where there's A-roll, so the person's sitting down answering the questions and they're talking about, you know, a build that they've done recently or are currently working on, then the B-roll would be the shots over top of the video while they're still speaking that support what they're talking about. So if they're talking about the new kitchen, then there's shots of the kitchen going over top, but there's still B-roll because the A-roll would be the speaking underneath.
Okay. So right now in real estate, there's different types of, we're seeing a lot of video. It's tracking. It's probably one of the top ways of getting content out. But I have found there's different types of real estate video. And as we've been doing it, and as I've been kind of analyzing what's happening out there, it falls in different categories. There's very curated video that, like you said earlier, you know, evokes emotion, really nice sound. Maybe it's a designer behind the house or whatever that's gonna, you know, walk through the space and do some of the things that we all do when we live in a home, like draw the curtains and all that. And then there's kind of not run and gun, but there's kind of that quick real estate, like agent real estate market where it's selling a house, through you go, some cool transitions, music, and then that's it. I'm finding that there's a lot of that, and it's very hard for a brand to stand out amongst that. It's the same kind of like drone going up to the house, and, you know, is there ways that, like, do you think there's when it comes to producing these videos, the more curated ones, or maybe even in between, that the industry's hit a limit on that kind of video?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things in there to unpack. The first being that it really comes back down to the intent. What is the intent of the video? You know, because these days people's attention spans are super short. Yeah. You know, they're in it for efficiency and quick purchase and low price, et cetera, et cetera. And I think without, you know, I'm not downplaying those style of videos because we do them too. That's great. There's a place there's a need and a place, et cetera. But I think what's important to understand is that, you know, when people are viewing those videos and they're making their decisions off of how polished the video looks, you know, basically making a decision off of a 30-second video, or if at least that's what's drawing them in, then you know, that's a different market than who might be looking at a longer form video, a 2-minute sit down interview, et cetera,
right?
Where, you know, what I say is that people buy into people, right? It's not always buying into the materials that were used or the craftsmanship or how fancy and quick and whatever the video is, right? So I think as a company, it really comes down to them to decide, you know, are we going to target our customers based on who we are and our processes and our workmanship.
I love that.
You know, all of these different things, and telling the behind the scenes and talking about how you started and why you started and that sort of thing. Are you going to tell that story, or are you going to show, you know, how fast you can edit through a house? And either is okay. And funny enough, they can be used simultaneously too, because sometimes those 30-second little quick snippets can be used as a funnel generator for learning more, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do I think there's a cap on the market in those styles of videos? Absolutely not.
Talk about viewing styles. So as we, you know, I'd probably say ever since COVID started, viewing is different, and what people consume and how quickly they consume it. Can you touch on that? You know, is it 5 seconds? You know, how do you keep them there within the first 5-10 seconds, whatever it is? But I think you and I always talk about attention and how quick people are to either stay or go. So are things changing there?
Yeah, I mean, attention spans have been getting shorter for years. You know, there's no doubt about it. So how you capture people in that first 5 seconds, I would say 5 seconds is extremely important. You know, if your shot is long and slow and isn't interesting, you know, those are some of the factors, obviously. Yeah, they might be clicking away. They might be scrolling past it. They might not be interested. So it's extremely important to capture them in the first 5 seconds. Now, there's multiple ways of doing so. The other thing to consider is that, you know, a lot of these people, when they scroll through for the first time, they don't have their audio on, right? Maybe they're on the train, maybe they're on the way to work. But you never know where people are consuming, right? So taking into account your analytics as far as what time of day is important. You know, taking into account where your drop off is, where people stopped watching it. Was it the first 5 seconds, or did you hook them then and then you lost them at 20 seconds? Okay, why, right? Yeah. So analytics are key, taking account into those, and yeah, just trying to analyze why, where, and how your viewers are viewing things can drastically improve.
So longer format video, what would you say is kind of something you guys are commonly seeing? Is it 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Like typically for a brand, if it's meant to be longer, what is that time period typically? So again, I kind of try to take into account where they are in the funnel, right? So your mass, like widespread net that's going to capture as many people as possible that are at least somewhat interested has got to be short, 15, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, big max kind of thing. If they're interested in that, then they'll be interested in watching maybe a 3, 4, 5 for sure. Because then they want to learn a little bit more. You know, that's traditionally in the sales process where they'd be on a call with you now, right? But maybe they just want to watch a video and find out a little bit more. And then, you know, then at the very bottom of the funnel, maybe the decision-making kind of communication might be 10 minutes, and that's totally fine. Or, you know, a 20-minute walkthrough, totally fine. It can exist, right? But that's hyper-focused. That's your 1%. That's your right before purchase. So to answer your question, I think, you know, for most people, the in-person is still important, especially in real estate. So I wouldn't go any longer than 5 minutes, really, unless you have a lot to say. But if you do have a lot to say, then it's probably better to unpack it a little bit further and then make maybe 5 1-minute videos, right? That are a little bit more manageable and a little bit more specific to what the client might want to hear. Awesome. So let's talk about price. Can you talk about how you navigate through pricing video and some of those common roadblocks or questions people have and they don't understand? Like, what's the value behind it? You know,
I hear a lot of stories about people being offended by people, you know, saying, wow, $10,000, you can charge that for a 2-minute video? Yeah, I can, you know, and not me, but plenty of people can. There's a lot of value behind it. And I think what people don't understand is they're just not educated. They just don't understand. So you can't be offended when they don't know, right? So the main thing for us is educating. When people are like, wow, what, how do you do that? Well, look, this is what goes into it. This is what comes out of it. This is what we will cover for you. This is how we make sure that you're covered long term, not only for this one project, et cetera. Going into specifics, I mean, in comparison to kind of going back to the phone thing, you know, somebody shows up with a phone, they take their phone out, they hit record, and they put it back in their pocket, and then hopefully it's good enough format to post wherever they want. The next step up would be, you know, an individual videographer who's somehow managing a lot of different factors, right? They're managing the audio, they're managing the shots, they're managing all of their gear, they're managing the lighting. These are traditionally 4, 5, 6 different roles, if not more. You know, so it kind of comes back down to you get what you pay for. Now going into a full production, full service company, you're getting the pre-production, so you're getting the storyboarding, you're getting the shot listing, you're getting the meetings to understand what your actual problem is, because you might come to a production company with a problem or with a video in mind per se, that might not even solve the problem that you have, right? Trust the experts. They are the experts, especially if you're getting a quote from these companies that are charging $5 to $50 grand. They are the experts, so you're going to them for a reason. So maybe go to them with a problem rather than the solution. But anyways, the storyboarding, the shot listing, the meetings to understand the problem, the scheduling, the model sourcing, the location sourcing, all of these different things go into the production before you even see them on site, right?
Right.
Now on site, typically a company like ours has, an audio person, at least one camera operator, typically 2 or 3, a gaffer, a light, someone for lighting, all of these different things. All of these people have years of experience, have been doing this forever, and need to get paid accordingly. Storage management, file management, so sourcing through all of that, finding what you need, finding what you don't need, going into editing, so cutting. Most people don't understand is that when footage comes out of camera, it's basically black and white, so we fully color everything. Audio is completely separate from the video as well.
And I know, working with some bigger developers, we've gone through exercises with them where we actually talked about coloring and saturation consistent to their brand, because that was important. And that's huge. So having that professional to have these conversations or call out colors to ensure that they're consistent is important.
Absolutely. And to wrap that all up, I think that the post care too, right? So is this a one-off? Is this it? Once they are signed off on the project, is that it? Is there a relationship there? So
like in marketing, people always ask us, well, if we go with you, or we work with you, will there be a return on investment? So for a video, do you get that question where it's like, okay, well, we'll pay the 10,000, but will this get us more business? And how would you answer that?
Yeah, great question. It's difficult to say you get a return on investment on a piece of content, because there's so many other factors that go into it, From a video perspective and any marketing perspective, really, we can make your product look great, but at the end of the day, it comes down to your product to make the sale, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting eyes on it,
yeah,
but we're not selling it for you.
Right.
Can we guarantee return on investment? No, but you can't with any type of marketing.
True. What are some top questions from the phone, the first call, that people should be asking of each company to help weed that down to maybe 1 or 2 to kind of go down the process? Yeah,
for sure. I'm going to toss something in there before. So typically before you go shopping, I would try and have a good understanding of what your budget is. Because
great point.
Because too many people will come into a call with a budget of 500, but they're talking about a $10,000 project.
Sure. How does someone know what their budget is? They may think 500, but
well, I mean, at the end of the day, you know what your budget is. You know what you're willing to spend. If 500 is your budget, then go make a $500 video. Just make sure it's maximizing on that $500.
Sure.
So I know it's difficult to understand if you've never done it before, and your range could be 500 or 50,000. That's understandable. So maybe the upfront question becomes, what kind of range are we working within, or what kind of projects does, one thing that I like to do before having a call is sending out projects that are similar to what we've done in the past, and just saying, look, this is the range of this project. If this range matches your budget, let's chat. It won't look exactly like this. We customize it to you, your needs, etc. And then from there, it's basically just, understanding what your needs are and who's going to tell that story best.
Right.
Because some companies might have different methods of doing so, and different stylistic choices that they make to tell a story in a different way. So that's how I do the initial shopping. Now, the questions, apples to apples, is kind of goes back to what we talked about last, but what does the relationship look like? From beginning to end, if I choose to go with you right now, how am I covered? At what points do we have communication? What does the process look like? And I would say leave the questions open-ended and let your video production company do the talking, because if they know what they're doing, they'll be able to tell you directly what their process is.
Right.
Because the more you talk, the more they'll cater their response to what you want to hear.